Shout out to Gamers Little Playground for this clip for Bloodborne. Now, some of you have yelled at me saying, hey man, you're making a Bloodborne video, but you're using Spider-Man footage. Okay, I played Bloodborne for like 10 minutes. It was at 30 FPS and I was like, my responsiveness is trash. Even with Elden Ring, it took, divine intervention to help me get good at that game. Sure, I might be good at Gotham Knights, but hey, I'm not going to sit here and claim that I'm good at every game that I pick up. But if I like a game, I'll put in the work. However, with this Bloodborne, conversation about PC ports or say possibly the emulated PC version that's going to give high frame rates coming down the pipeline, I am actually looking forward to maybe getting my hands on that because I own the game on PlayStation, but I don't want to play it at 30 FPS if there's a proposition or a possibility that I could play it at 60 FPS. In today's video, however, I wanted to talk about something that I think might boil your skin if you are in the Bloodborne, fan base, or if you're somebody who's looking at the gaming scene and looking at what PlayStation is doing right now. I mentioned something in a video and I thought a calculator would be in order to actually point this out. A game like Bloodborne, its development cost could not have run PlayStation anything more than say even $100 million when you actually go ahead and factor in say other possibilities in terms of, say, what it costs to make a video game right now. Maybe you can say about $200 million in that regard in terms of production, right? So let's go ahead and let's kind of see exactly what it is this picture paints. Just a few, years ago, PlayStation decided to go ahead and acquire Bungie as a studio that would teach them how to actually make live service games. They weren't acquiring Bungie to take Destiny, which is their main IP, as an exclusive. They weren't acquiring them to take Marathon, which is the game they're working on, as an exclusive. That would have been, probably maybe a better justification, but also a poor market decision because Bungie is known for bringing its games everywhere. But they wanted them to teach them how to actually make live service games. Now, if you guys know what this implication means, then you probably are starting to see where I'm going with this particular conversation, which is right now, if you calculate that Bungie cost and compare it to say maybe what it would have cost you to actually go ahead and make a game like say Bloodborne, at the end of the day, you will realize that that acquisition of Bungie was not a smart decision and does not actually line up with what PlayStation, in a sense, has already established with its own player base for the games that they need to be expecting. Simply, they have gone against what has pretty much made them PlayStation for the last few years in just that Bungie acquisition, spending $3 billion. Now let's do the math on $3 billion. If you break $1 billion down, you need $200 million. Let's say a game costs $200 million. 1 billion of that is 5 potential video games, marketing and everything included, because sure, you don't need to use all 200M in your production. I mean, freaking Ghost of Tsushima cost about 60 million to develop. Let's say you do 100 develop, 100 marketing, get big banger, knock out 15M copies or 10 million copies or whatever it is, you make your money. You don't have to pay anybody else. And this is on the PlayStation side because they actually do, this exclusivity thing better than Xbox. You don't have to give anybody money. It's selling all on your platform. All revenue is yours. And then you take your expenses and profit margin is yours. Sound, very sound way of doing things. That's just $1 billion. And that's 5 games. 5 games of which you could appeal to each fan base within your ranks. You can appeal to the Souls fan base. You don't even need From Software to actually make you a game like that. You see, I think the whole Bloodborne emphasis is just really, big because it's a game with nostalgia and stuff. PlayStation could simply bypass the, what I think are the roadblocks. Is right now Miyazaki is probably not going to easily sit down and make them another game. They can simply bypass the roadblock and tell Bluepoint, hey, you guys just worked on the Demon's Soul remake, right? You guys kind of saw the way they structured their game and such. Why don't we get some of our creatives to think about how we can make a Souls-like that's just a PlayStation Souls-like with that kind of a budget? And I think that would probably even resonate on a smaller budget perspective and still help push forward PlayStation's agenda in continuing to further its platform. And then possibly with a PC release down the road, that would also help a little bit in terms of moving the needle forward. Now, again, I mean, I'm pointing this example and just looking at this a third of what they spent on Bungie, actually less than a third. It was 3.6 billion. Whoo, like yikes, right? So again, we've taken $1 billion and we've broken it down into potentially, and this is just an estimate, potentially 5 games, of which one could have been a Souls-like, or one of them could have been a Bloodborne remake at any rate. Now take this $2 billion and then start adding it. And then now we bring in the entire PlayStation community and ask and say, hey man, could we have gotten an Infamous game? Could we have gotten a Siphon Filter game? Could we have gotten, a Killzone game? What could we have gotten with all of this money that was spent in acquiring Bungie to go ahead and be a glorified tutor on how to make live service games? Because that's what they are. They literally are a glorified tutor. And now even PlayStation is starting to see that these are not tutor material. These are literally middle school kids, because apparently they don't even know how to run their own live service shop. And it doesn't seem like they have much to offer in terms of what they're going to, give to PlayStation at the end of the day. Or maybe that was just a press release and PlayStation said that just so that, they could get their investors all hyped for why they just blew freaking, $3.6 billion. And then we go into the third billion, which is, another 5 games, possibly. Oh, my goodness. And you see that we are at potentially 15 of these games. Maybe at this point, say if you divide it into 3, let's say 5 of them will be, on, say, a few franchises that play a certain way, 5 of them on a few franchises that play a separate way, and then another 5 on Souls-likes, and they basically foster that particular direction. But who am I kidding? They closed Japan Studio, who had at least some experience working with From Software, and they moved their teams, and now those teams have gone to make maybe some of the staff there, they worked on Astrobot. Again, as much as I admire and I adore the attempt to make a game that Nintendo has profited off of for many years, it just seems like the trend chasing is really stifling the potential of good games that could come out. So for this whole Bloodborne conversation, I just have to say that unless PlayStation gets its act together, or they have some sinister, or I guess, big surprise waiting on this franchise, I think we can call it a lost cause. Now, I'm not saying it's impossible to see the comeback, or in that regard, see what's going on, but I just don't know if they actually care enough to do this, because not only have they dialed into this paradigm with $3 billion, it's just come out that they blew over $200 million. The estimates are saying $400 million. More estimates are saying about $1 billion on Concord, having acquired a studio to make that was already making the game, and then all the extra costs. It's insane to see this. And what's crazy is a game like Fair Games is coming down the road. Wow, they're going to really launch this game, and this game must have cost them about maybe the same or half of what it cost to make a game like, Concord. So again, here's where your single player game's money is going to. When I was pointing this stuff out, when they actually made their intentions known, I got called names. I got people telling me that PlayStation is fine because they still have bangers. And I'm thinking, guys, do you know what 60% of your budget is? PlayStation had already signaled that they were going to actually spend 60% of their budget in terms of research and development on live service games. And no one saw this as a red flag. Like, I think a lot of people looked at it and they just kind of brushed it off. And I was thinking to myself, what? Why would they want to do anything like that when their pillars actually rely on the single player titles that they've made for the longest time? Look at it. It's still here. It's still here. It feels like yesterday when Sony was laying out a plan to use 60% of its PlayStation budget to make and release 12 live service games in the next few years. Now it's showing that it's not going so well. This was in 2023 that they showed that it was not going as well. And you know what they did? They decided that they were going to go ahead and basically reduce the release of these games in terms of their calendar. So what they want to do is they want to spread them out. I've seen a lot of people interpret this as them canceling those live service games. They have not signaled that. They've signaled that instead of bringing them all out in the FY 2026 calendar like they wanted to, or 2025 calendar, they're going to go ahead and like spread it all out. They want to give it time to kind of see if someone will adopt, or a player base will adopt one of them that they can make a bunch of money from. And seeing how The Last of Us did not necessarily come out with factions, because somehow Neil Druckmann said, well, they didn't want to be a live service studio, because making a live service game requires support. And I think PlayStation doesn't even really have a good pipeline to get the job done. If you're going to make a live service game, you got to have multiple studios at work, especially when the studio that you want the majority of the work to come out from is a studio that's used to doing single player games. And I think that's another missing paradigm. But again, I don't want to give them too many ideas in this video on how to do it properly. We need for them to go to what makes their pillars very strong, which is their single player games, their high quality games. We also understand that they would love to make money from a live service game. But here's the thing. The pathway to those live service games is that they take a strong IP and put a solid gameplay experience and then tack on the live service game to it. A game like Destiny and The Division, they did those things and they did them well. So PlayStation is basically running from its shadow when the answer is literally sitting at its doorstep. Thanks for watching this video. Appreciate you guys so much. Let me hear your thoughts in the comment section. Hopefully we'll talk pretty soon in another one. Peace out.